Well, thank you for holding. Welcome to today's Tivoli User Community Ask the Expert series. In today's session, our expert speaker, Christina Grimes, will demonstrate installing Netcool Omnibus probes and gateways on Omnibus 8.1. Today's webcast is interactive, so you may ask a question at any time using the chat window located in the lower right-hand corner of your screen. Today's session is being recorded, and you'll be provided a copy of today's materials following the call. And with that, I'll turn the presentation over to Christina. Take it away.
Thank you, Sam. This is Christina Grimes. I'll be discussing tips and tricks for probe and gateway installation on Omnibus 8.1. Today I'll cover the files to back up prior to an installation on Omnibus 8.1. In 8.1 we moved to Installation Manager, so the files to back up are somewhat different. I'll talk about prerequisites to installing a probe or gateway, downloading the correct package for Omnibus 8.1, installing a probe or gateway, the commands to use, upgrading a probe or gateway, and how to roll back a probe or gateway installation. And then I'll do a demo of installing, upgrading, and rolling back MT-Trap-D probe installation on Omnibus 8.1. On Omnibus 8.1 and later, we move to Installation Manager, so you should back up the NC Home directory as well as the IM Shared and Data Agent directories before any installations. The default NC Home directory is opt IBM Tivoli IBM. For probes and gateways, you don't always have to back up the entire NC Home directory, but you should at least back up your probe properties and rules files and your gateway configuration files. And if you do need to roll back, then you at least have your configuration in place. The default directory for the data agent is in the Installation Manager install directory, IBM Installation Manager Eclipse configuration. And the IM Shared directory is chosen at install. You can search for IBM IM Shared. The default installation is in the installer under IBM IM Shared. If a restore is needed, you can restore the NC Home directory, IM Shared, and Data Agent directories all at the same time. With Installation Manager, we do have a new rollback option during installation to roll back to a previous version. I'll be going through that during this as well. So if you need to restore to a previous version of a probe or gateway after an install, you can use the rollback option instead of doing a complete restore. Prerequisites for installation. Omnibus Core 8.1 must be installed prior to installing any probes or gateways. Don't forget to install the latest Omnibus Core 8.1 fix pack. Even if you only have the probe support component installed, it's always good to install a fix pack for Omnibus Core. The Omnibus Core fix pack will include fixes for all components, including probe support. You can check the README within the probe or gateway package for the required Omnibus version. It will list out all of the patch dependencies. It will list out, here's an example from the SNMP probe. It lists out all of the required fix pack levels for all the different versions of Omnibus and on particular platforms as well. All probe or gateway package prerequisites are installed automatically, so you shouldn't need to install anything other than just be at the required Omnibus Core fix pack level. Any other probe and gateway prerequisite packages are automatically installed when you install the probe or gateway. Downloading the 8.1 probe or gateway package. Omnibus 8.1 and later require a different probe and gateway installation package since they use Installation Manager instead of the deployment engine. The tip is to ensure the package name on Passport Advantage contains Omnibus 8+. All of the probe and gateway packages for Omnibus 8.1 and later will have Omnibus 8+ in the name. Here's an example for the current MT-Trap-D probe. It says Netcool Omnibus 8+ probe for SNMP. How can you tell if you already have a downloaded package, if it is a package for Omnibus 8.1 or not? Here's an example for the current MT-Trap-D 20 version of the files that you would see within an Omnibus 8+ probe package or a gateway package. You'll see these different directories, ATOC, files, native offerings, plugins, shareable entities, and especially you always see a repository.config and a repository.xml. You can also see within here is a README file, and that README file would have the fix-pack level that is required for that particular probe or gateway installation.
Excuse me, Christina, we have a question.
Okay, Wade, go ahead.
Should fixpacks be installed after all other software? If probe is installed after fixpack, will the probe overwrite the fixpacks?
The probe won't overwrite the fixpack install. The probe files are completely separate from the fixpack installation. I would always suggest installing the fixpack first. You can install it after the probe installation, but there might be some fixes in the fixpack that would have to do with the probe install as well. So I would suggest installing Omnibus Core, then the fixpack, and then the probe or gateway package.
We have another question. The installation is under Windows. Could be possible to see the installation under Linux, Solaris, or AIX?
The installation can be on Linux, Solaris, AIX, or Windows. I was just showing the package contents here from looking at the Windows zip file, but later I will be doing the demo on the Linux platform. Okay, I did want to mention that if you have a probe or gateway package that is for the deployment engine, which would be for Omnibus 7.4 and prior, you will see a COI directory listed first when you open the probe or gateway package. So that's how you can know that that's for deployment engine and not for installation manager. Here's an example of how to install a probe or gateway. First, if there are other probe and gateways running on the same server, check the prerequisites as they may need to be stopped. Within each probe and gateway guide on the summary page, they'll list out the prerequisites that are installed with it. Especially for probes, we have a lot of probes that are non-native probes, which means they have a prerequisite non-native package. And if you have multiple non-native probes that are running on the same server, all those non-native probes need to be stopped whenever you're installing or upgrading a non-native probe onto the same server. So it's always good to check. You can check the README within the package to see what the prerequisites are, and also in the probe or gateway guide on the summary page. You should choose the install option for new installations only. If you're doing an upgrade, I'll go through that later, but you would choose the update option instead. The command line or console mode is listed here. It's a very long command, but if you use this command, what it does is it adds a package repository, installs the probe or gateway, and then afterward automatically removes the repository. You can go through also and just do the imcl-c commands. Then you have to add the repository, install, and then remove the repository afterwards. In the example later, I'll be using a local file-based repository. So I've downloaded the files from Passport Advantage and I've placed them locally on the file system. So the command line or console mode command is listed here. It's imcl-c install. Then all of the probe or gateway packages start with com.ibm.tivoli.omnibus.integrations.nco-, and then you would put P for probe or G for gateway, dash, and then the name of the probe or gateway. So for example, MT-Trap-D or JDBC if you're doing the JDBC gateway. Dash repositories, and this will be the local repository, the local file location where you have unzipped the probe or gateway package. So the full path to the unzipped package location. Then dash installation directory, and then this is your NC home directory. So opt IBM Tivoli Netcool is the default location. From the GUI, you can use the IBM IM option. So you just issue IBM IM. Then you would have to add the repository, choose Install, and then choose Remove Repository. And here's a tip on where to find the IMCL command and the IBM IM command. For IMCL, navigate to the Eclipse Tools subdirectory in the location where you installed the Installation Manager. IBM IM is just under the Eclipse directory. And the root default location for Installation Manager is opt IBM Installation Manager Eclipse Tools. The non-root default location is the user's home directory, IBM Installation Manager Eclipse. On Windows, the administrator default location is C Program Files, IBM Installation Manager Eclipse Tools. And the non-administrator default location is C Users, the username, IBM Installation Manager Eclipse Tools. Upgrading a probe or gateway. Before upgrading, ensure that the probe or gateway that you're going to upgrade is stopped. And again, if there are other probes and gateways running on the same server, check the prerequisites and make sure that they don't have the same prerequisite packages as the probe or gateway that you'll be upgrading, or they would need to be stopped as well. If you try to install a probe or gateway, if you try to install a probe or gateway that's already installed, so you're trying to upgrade, you'll get an error. The error is package Netcool Omnibus probe and COP MT Trap D is already installed in this package group. I have an example of that on the next page as well. Again, the command line or console mode way to install would be the IMCL-C command, and that will take you through the GUI prompts. And the GUI way to do it is IBM IM. So when you go through and you do this command line, you would choose P for preferences, 1 for repositories, and then A for add repository. And here's an example of how you would add a repository and what you should see listed under repository. So here I've added a repository of temp mttrapd_20. That's my local file system where I've unpacked the mttrapd20 version. And I wanted to point out that under repositories, if you don't have internet access, it's always a good idea to uncheck the S option. So the S option is Search Service Repositories during installation and updates. And what that means is that your installation manager will try to connect to Passport Advantage and search there for any installs and updates. It's always a good idea to uncheck that if you don't want to go out to Passport Advantage and download the latest. If you just want to use the local file-based, then make sure that the S option there is unchecked. I think this is a repeat of the same slide. Here we go. Once you have the repository added, return to the main menu and then choose 2 to update. So only choose update if the package is already installed and needs to be upgraded. If it's a new installation and it's not already installed, then you would choose install option. If you accidentally choose install on an upgrade, or if you go and you use that full long command that you used on installation to try to do an upgrade, you'll receive the error, the package is already installed in this package group. Then after you choose update, select the package IBM Tivoli Netcool Omnibus. This will actually show all of the Omnibus core and probes and gateways that are installed on the server, and then you'll later have the option to select the specific one that you want to update. So here's a screenshot of when you're updating the packages. You will see all of the packages that are installed. And here, if I just want to upgrade the SNMP probe from version 18 to version 20, you see that options 2 and 3 are selected. Rolling back a probe or gateway installation, you can choose the rollback option to revert to a previously installed version. Here's a tip. You must have the old installation package available on the server to roll back. So when you're installing probes and gateways, if you're installing Omnibus, it's a good idea that whatever you've installed, you keep in a file repository somewhere so that if you do need to roll it back, you can roll it back with the rollback option using the old installation package. So here's an example of rolling back. You would still use the same command line or console mode, imcl-c command, and then choose IBM IM for the GUI. You would choose option 4 to roll back, and again choose IBM Tivoli Netcool Omnibus. You have to choose the overall package, but later on it will give you the option of what to roll back. And here's what I would see under the rollback packages on my install. I have the Netcool Omnibus MT-Trap-D probe version 20 and version 18, and both of those are checked in order for me to roll back from version 20 to version 18. And note that I would have to have that version 18 package on the local file system in order to roll it back. Are there any questions?
It looks like we do have a question. It says, let's see. Why should we use rollback if we have a backup of NC home?
It's really up to you. You can go ahead and stop everything and go ahead and place back your whole NC home. You would also have to place back your installation manager directories as well in order to roll back installation manager. Now what that does is that takes a snapshot of your NC home at that particular time. If you have like an object server running on that server, you might not want to roll back your object server to before when that snapshot was taken. So in some cases it's better to roll back than to go ahead and restore the NC home directory and the installation manager directories. Okay, now I'm going to break and do a demo. So I'm going to try to do a demo of installing the MT-Trap-D probe version 18 on Linux. I'll be using the command line options to do it. Then I will upgrade the MT-Trap-D probe to version 20. And then I'll do a rollback of the MT-Trap-D probe from version 20 back to version 18. I have done this install as a non-root user. I'm sorry,
we have another question. Is it recommended to install as root?
You don't have to install as root. You can install as a non-root user. And in this example, I've actually installed as a non-root user. If you do install as a non-root user, you want to make sure to use something like a service account where the user is not going to be deleted, so that you will still have access to that account if the user gets removed for some reason.
We have another, oh, well, I guess this is actually, says, especially for installation manager, which may be used for different products. Just a little help.
Yes. You can certainly install as root if you want to, and that would make the install available to anyone that has root access. but you can also install as non-root, but I would suggest doing it as a different account, like a Netcool user account or an NCO admin account, where you would have access to that service account and multiple people could use it to do the installs. Okay. So here I am a non-root user. My user ID is CLG 8.1. So you can see that Installation Manager is installed under my home directory. It's under Home CLG 8.1 IBM Installation Manager. And I'm going to use the IMCL command. So that's under the Eclipse Tools directory. So rather than type this all out, I copied this onto a different page. So I'm going to run the imcl-c install com.ibm Tivoli Omnibus integrations, ncop mttrapd, and then dash repositories. I've already downloaded the mttrapd probe version 18 package, and I've unpacked it into the temp mttrapd_18 directory. And then the dash installation directory, this is my NC home location on this server. It's under opt Christina Netcool 8.1.
Christina, we have a couple more questions.
Okay, go ahead.
Can different users use the same installation manager?
It does depend on the installation manager options. So I believe on Unix it defaults to letting you have group control to running the installation manager. On Windows, I believe it defaults to a single user. You can change that, but usually on Windows it's a single user installation. And on Unix you can make it available to multiple users.
Okay, and we have one more. Is there a convenient way to upgrade Omnibus 7.4 to 8.1 rather than migration?
The 7.4 to 8.1 upgrade, it isn't an in-place upgrade, so it does have to install into a new directory, and then you have to copy some files. There's an upgrade.sh command that can be used, but you do have to copy some files from the 7.4 install to the 8.1 installation. So it isn't an in-place upgrade. It is really a migration where you have to go from 7.4 to 8.1 into different directory structures.
And that is it for the questions right now.
Okay. So I've issued the long IMCL command to do the install, and this doesn't force me to do an adding of that repository. What it does is it automatically adds that repository in, and it passes some of the initial commands that I would have to go through. During the update later, I'll show you more how you would go in and add a repository and do it that way instead. So this automatically comes up with my selected package to install, which is my mttrapd probe version 18. So I just select Next. I have to accept the terms of the license agreement. So I choose A to accept and then N for Next. And then it's always going to find your package group for all your probes and gateways is all under Omnibus Core. So it's going to find everything under IBM Tivoli Netcool Omnibus. And I just verify that that's correct and that my selected location is my NC home directory. And I choose Next. And then it gives a summary, and then I choose Install. The installation manager is pretty quick to install. You can see that it's a lot faster than our deployment engine was to do an installation. And I can select Finish. Okay, now I'm just going to go into the main command line tool, which is IMCL-C. And this is the main menu of IMCL-C. To verify that the mttrapd probe is installed now, I can choose a V to view install packages. And this will list all of the packages that are installed under the Installation Manager. And you might notice that all probe and gateways, they all have a 1 dot in front of the actual version. So if it says 1.18.0.0, that doesn't mean that I have a 1.18 version installed. The actual version is 18.0.0. And gateways are the same as well. The actual version will be after the 1 dot. Now I'll do an update for the MT-Trap-D probe from version 18 to version 20. So first I have to go and add a repository for my version 20 package. And you can do this on installation as well. Just if you choose to do that long command, it automatically adds the repository, does the install, and removes it afterwards. You can also come into this main menu, add the repository, install, and then manually go remove that repository afterwards. So to add a repository, I go to P, Preferences. I choose 1, Repositories. And here I'm going to go to D, Add a Repository. And I've already downloaded the MT-Trap-D Pro package for version 20, and I have unpacked it into an temp MT-Trap-D 20 directory. Now I'm going to remove, when I install something, I always just like to install what I'm going to install now. So I am actually going to go and remove my old repository for the syslog probe that I have listed here. And to remove the old repository, I choose 1. And then 2 to remove repository. And now I only see my 1 repository listed for my MT-Trap-D version 20. I also want to point out that I have this option here, S, unchecked, so that it won't try to go and search the service repositories during installation and updates. That would try to go and connect to Passport Advantage and check for all of the current versions for anything that I have installed. If you don't have internet access on the system, this can really slow the installer update as well, because it will try to go in and connect to Passport Advantage first. So now I have added the repository that I want to add, so I'm going to apply changes and return to the Preferences menu with A, and then choose R to return to the main menu. Now I'm going to choose 2 to update, and you would choose 2 to update to upgrade anything if you already have it installed. Similarly, when you do Omnibus FixPack installations, you would choose the 2 update option. And it's going to ask me to select a package group to update. You might get worried here that it's going to try to update all of your Omnibus, but it will ask you later what specific packages to update. So here I can choose Next, because my IBM Tivoli Netcool Omnibus is already selected. And here it looks through your repositories to see what you have to update, and it selects what you have in your repositories automatically. So you could go in here, and if there's anything you don't want to install, check that. Like for example, if I didn't want to install the MT-Trap-D probe and upgrade it here, I would choose option 3 and unselect it. Since I want to upgrade the MT-Trap-D probe, you can see that option 3 is kind of indented. So I want to select both option 2 and 3 and just leave it as is. It automatically found that in the repositories that I have. So then I choose Next. I choose A to accept the terms of the license agreement, and then Next. And then I choose U for update. And it says the update completed successfully. And now again, I can choose V to view my installed packages. And this now shows that I have the MT-Trap-D probe version. It says 1.20.0.0, but that is really version 20 is installed. You can always ignore that one dot at the beginning. Okay, now that I have updated, I always still have to go back and remove that old repository. So I'm going to go under P Preferences, Repositories, choose my repository for the MT-Trap-D version 20, and then choose 2 to remove the repository. I'll apply the changes and return to the Preferences menu, and then return to the main menu. Now let's go through a rollback. So in the rollback, I'm going to revert to an earlier version of the SNMP probe. So I'm going to revert from version 20 back to version 18. Note that you have to have the earlier version package as a repository on the system, and it's going to prompt me to add it as a repository later, but you do still have to have the old package in order to roll back. So I choose option 4 to roll back. It's going to again select the package group, and the package group is always IBM Tivoli Netcool Omnibus. Now it's going to ask me specifically, what do I want to roll back? So I'm going to choose 2. And that selects both 1 and 2, so that it's going to revert back to version 1.18.0.0. I select Next. And R to roll back. And the rollback finished successfully. So now I can view the installed packages. And it shows me that version 18 is installed. Now I can exit Installation Manager. And I'll go to my NC Home directory. And I can run an ncop MT-Trap-D-version to verify my version here as well. And I can see that it is release ID is 1802, so it is version 18. There's one other place that you can check versions on Omnibus 8.1. In 8.1, they added back the old NCOID command. So I can go to my Omni Home bin directory and type NCOID. And this will query the installation manager, and it will print out all of the installed packages. So it prints out my products and fix packs. Now this did not list out my probes. Let me pass it the -V flag, which is in verbose mode. This prints a lot of information. If you aren't sure on your installation manager location, you can also use this, when I'll scroll by, NCOID-V command. And if you use the NCOID-V command, you can see what your IM home directory is here at the beginning. It will list your IM home. And it prints some good system information, and it goes through and it lists all of the products that are installed. is the end of my demo. Wei, do we have any questions?
There are no questions in the chat currently.
Okay.
Though we did have a question before the whole thing started. Somebody had asked, when upgrading from 7.4 to 8.1, will the gateway configuration files and probe rules files written for 7.4 work without modification?
That's a good question. So all of the options for the probes and gateways between 7.4 and 8.1 are the same, but you have to install into different directories in 7.4 and 8.1. So you'll probably have to install different versions potentially of the probe and gateway. You can install the same version in both, but you have to go and download a new package for Omnibus 8 anyway. So you'll likely have different versions installed. You could always look in the README file within the probe package, and let me show you an example of that. Here I have the version 20 MT-Trap-D probe package, and it has a README file in the main directory. And in the README file, they list out any known issues, they list out the patch dependencies, and they list out all of the APARs and fixes that were done in every version of that probe or gateway. So if you know, for example, that you had MT-Trap-D version 18 installed on 7.4, and you now have to install version 20 on 8.1, you can go in here and you can see were there any changes in probe and gateway properties between these versions. There are sometimes some properties that change between versions of a probe and gateway, so it's a good idea to look at the README file to see if there were any changes. Generally, you can usually copy your probe and gateway configuration files from 7.4 to 8.1, but as you would also have to likely upgrade it, it's good to come in here and check if there's any changes between versions.
We have a couple questions now. No more DE, right? And yes, if you're on 8.1, there is no more DE.
Yes, that's correct. In 8.1, DE was replaced with the installation manager.
And I submitted a question when I registered. Hopefully this is the question followed after that, because I don't see anything else. What % of customers are using probe flood rules? Is there a best practice configuration for it? Is it recommended?
It's hard to know what percentage of customers are using the probe flood rules, but I do see them used quite a bit. There is a default configuration for it in the OmniHome extensions directory, and we do recommend it to detect flood conditions within the probe. It has better logging so that you can at least know when there's a flood within the probe, and also it allows it to alert when there's a flood condition, and it can take some remedial actions. So you could divert some events during a flood or drop lower severity events during a flood. Let me know if you have any more questions about the flood rules.
Okay, and we have the next question I see, or the next thing I see it says, would not think if hard-coded paths for lookups, includes, and rules files would work. Would need to change the path?
So I guess you're asking about when you're upgrading from 7.4 to 8.1. So yes, you do have to use a different directory if you're doing it on the same server, since you can't do an in-place upgrade from 7.4 to 8.1. So if you do have any hard-coded paths in the lookup and rules files, you would need to go and change those. If you're using like the Netcool knowledge library and you have something like an NC rules home set up, then you could just change that environment variable to the new installation, and that would be easier. But yes, whenever you're doing an upgrade, and if the directory structure changes, then you'd have to go through and change those hard-coded paths. That's a good point. Thank you.
Okay, I have another question here. You mentioned removing a repository before updating the probe. Why did you remove that repository? When it is necessary to remove, when is it necessary to remove repositories, or is it always an option only to save space?
That's a good question. So I did remove a repository that I had an old one out there for the syslog probe. So when you're doing an update, it searches all of the repositories that you have for updates to your installed packages. So if, for example, if you have Passport Advantage selected as a search with a Passport Advantage repository, on update is going to try to connect to Passport Advantage. It will search all of your installed products, and it will come up with a list from Passport Advantage of all of the current versions of those and ask you what to install. So if I had kept that syslog repository in place, it would try to go and search it to see what was there, and it would come up with a list of anything that was there if it was an update as well. After it searches those, it will always come up with a list of what it should update, but just to make it clean, I always like to go out, since I'm just using local file systems, and I tend to put things in the temporary directory and I install it, and then afterwards I remove it. I would go out and remove my old repositories as well, since I probably don't have that directory there anymore. You don't have to. You could leave it there, but just to make it clean and to clean it up, it can make your install faster because it won't try to go and find those old repositories.
Okay, we have another question though. Roberto, we might need a little more. Can you comment about internet connectivity again? And I'm not sure what.
Yes, I know what he was talking about.
Okay.
So when you go under, let me find it. When you go under your repositories, there's an option to search. Let me go in and I'll show it to you. So here I'll come back into the Installation Manager command line. And when you go under Preferences, and you look at your repositories, there's this option here to search service repositories during installation and updates. And what that basically means is it will try to connect to Passport Advantage and search it during installations and updates. If you have this selected and you don't have internet connectivity, it can slow it down since it will try to go out to Passport Advantage and search for new updates. If you have internet connectivity and you just want it to go out and retrieve things from Passport Advantage, you can certainly use that. But if you don't have internet connectivity, it's a good idea to uncheck this if you're not going to be using Passport Advantage, because it can slow down your install or update since it tries to go out and search Passport Advantage first.
Okay, we have another question. With all the Java NPAPI plugin support going away for browsers, when will we be Java free?
That's a good question. So with the latest version of WebGUI, they do now have an event viewer. So they are moving away from our old GUI, which used the Java plugin, and the event viewer at least is Java free. Is that your question just about the web GUI, or did you have a question about other components?
He says thank you. That looks like that was probably the answer he was looking for.
Okay. Oh, we had a question about the TEP, which is an ITM product. I don't know if there's any plans for the TEP to move away from Java or not. If you do want your installation manager to connect to Passport Advantage, you can come under the Preferences, and there's an option number 6. And this is where you can configure the connection to Passport Advantage. Are there any other questions?
There is another pre-question here.
Okay.
I am looking for vSphere KVM, Power VC, Hyper-V, Z-VM, ITNM, and storage probes, and the probe soft layer installation.
So we don't have separate packages for virtual platforms. I think this is asking about installs on virtual platforms. In general, we do have a general support agreement that we do support just our standard installation on virtual platforms. And there is a list of virtual platforms that we do automatically support. If the virtual platform isn't on that list, we always still provide best effort support. And what that means is that if the virtual platform is not one of our IBM supported virtual platforms, that we might require that the problem be recreated on a supported platform instead of just a virtual platform, so that we can verify that it's not just a problem with the virtual environment.
Okay, we have another question here. It has having to do with searching Passport Advantage. How about ID password for Passport Advantage if selecting connect to internet? Will you be prompted for that, or?
Yes, I believe it does prompt you. So here it doesn't even prompt me. It just says failed to connect to Passport Advantage. I know it does ask you to configure that information here. I'm not sure where it's at. I'll have to check on that. I know that it will prompt you for your user information in order to connect to Passport Advantage, but I'm not sure where it is stored at. June, I'll get back to you with that, and I'll let you know after the session.
Okay, we have another question. I would like to know when the logs of Installation Manager and the installation of probes are generated. Is there a default directory?
There is. So just within your Installation Manager here, you can go in here and view the logs. The logs files themselves are kept in XML, so it's usually easier to come and view them from the console or the GUI. It will make them easier to read. So here you can see that it lists out all the lines, and I can show if I only want to see errors, I can uncheck these other options and it will show only that log information. If you don't come view it from the GUI, it will display all the XML lines, so it won't be as easy to read. So it's usually better just to come view it from your Installation Manager command line or from the GUI. Now if you open a PMR, we do have a log directory that we ask for. And you can see here there's a Home CLG 8.1 var IBM Installation Manager logs is where my log location is. But if you're going to view the logs and just to verify the information, it's a good idea to come in here. And here I'll show you, you can go in and you can choose I to remove the information logging. And the GUI has a similar line where it will show you. So here you can see that I came back in, and when you unselect these options, then it will show only those lines. So there were no warnings or errors in the log file for this. All the logs do have a timestamp, so you can see it's all the year, the month, the date, and the time. So you can go based on that to see what was installed. So for example, if I return to the main menu, I could go to View Logs, and if I want to see the latest log, it would be number 23. I could see that there were a couple of warnings logged for logging to a diagnostic download log, but that was it. There was no other warnings or errors on the install.
And there was one other question pre-presentation that I believe you actually answered in the presentation. Known problems with MT-Trap vprobe and JDBC, which, if I recall correctly, you would refer to the README file with the probe packages or the gateway package?
Yes, that's right. Any known issues and also any APARs will be listed within the README file. So if you have questions on if there's any known issues, you can always go and get the latest package from Passport Advantage and look at the README file, and it will list out any known issues that are fixed, that are still in that release, and also any APARs that were fixed since the version that you have installed.
Okay, and we have another question. Is it possible to open this installation with an X Windows?
It is. So the IBM IM is the command line option. Now, Eclipse on Linux has a lot of prerequisites, so it does require a lot of additional libraries to be installed. But as long as all of those library prerequisites are listed in our Omnibus 8.1 documentation. But I've seen a lot of problems with bringing up the GUI on Eclipse. So especially on Linux, I like running it from command line. But if you can get the GUI to open and you have all those prerequisites installed that are needed, then yes, you can open it and export it to X Windows. It might be a little slower that way.
That is presently it for any questions. Does anyone else have any questions?
Okay, well, I guess there's no other questions. I just want to say thank you for joining, everyone.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you again, ladies and gentlemen, for attending, and a big thank you to Christina, and also definitely to Wade there for helping facilitate here at the end. So if everyone would please do take a few moments to fill out our post-event survey. Our input, your input is very useful and important to us in helping us to mold our future events. But this does conclude today's conference. Have a wonderful day.